giving us graciously this first look at it. So why don't we roll this video and then we can talk about it afterwards.
Okay. It would be my father's 100th birthday. I've thought about him and missed him every day of my life. But growing up without him was made easier thanks to all the people who kept him in their hearts, who told me that he inspired them to work and fight and believe in a better world, to give something back to this country that has given so much to so many.
The Kennedy name is practically American royalty, synonymous with power, glamour, and an almost mythical charisma that captivated the world. But for every moment of triumph in Camelot, there seems to be an equal and opposite moment of heartbreaking devastation. Join us as we look at the heartbreaking moments that defined a generation and reveal the costs behind the headlines. Maeve Kennedy Townsend and Gideon. The modern era of the Kennedy family seemed to have finally escaped the dark cloud of the past until the spring of 2020 brought a fresh wave of grief. Maeve Kennedy Townsend McKean, the granddaughter of RFK, and her 8-year-old son Gideon vanished into the Chesapeake Bay while trying to retrieve a lost kickball. What started as a simple, playful afternoon of quarantine activity turned into a frantic search that ended in the worst possible way. Her husband, David McKean, later shared the shattering reality of that day in a statement that broke hearts around the world. Quote, "It is clear that Maeve and Gideon have passed away. The search for their recovery will continue, and I hope that it will be successful." Saoirse Kennedy Hill. Just a year before the Chesapeake tragedy, the family gathered at their Hyannisport compound, not for a celebration though. Saoirse Kennedy Hill, another of RFK's granddaughters, was found unresponsive just days before she was set to start her senior year at Boston College. At only 22, she'd been a vibrant voice for destigmatizing mental health, openly discussing her own battles in a way that previous generations of Kennedys had never dared. Her death from an accidental overdose highlighted the private struggles, often hidden behind the family's public facade of invincibility. In a piece she wrote for her school newspaper, she left behind a hauntingly honest description of the demons she fought. Quote, "Although I was mostly a happy child, I suffered bouts of deep sadness that felt like a heavy boulder on my chest." Mary Richardson Kennedy. While many Kennedy tragedies were sudden accidents, the death of Mary Richardson Kennedy was the slow, painful culmination of years of private anguish. The estranged wife of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Mary was a brilliant architect and environmentalist who found herself increasingly isolated as her marriage crumbled and her battle with depression intensified. Her suicide in the family's Bedford barn shocked the public, but it also sparked a fierce conversation about how the family and society treats mental illness. Michael Kennedy. New Year's Eve in Aspen should be a time of joy and renewal, but for the Kennedy clan in 1997, it was the setting for a freak accident that seemed almost impossible to believe. Michael Kennedy, the 6th child of RFK, was playing a game of ski football on the slopes, a reckless family tradition, when he slammed into a tree. He was known as the daredevil of the family, a man who lived life at full throttle, but this time the risk proved fatal. As family members frantically tried to revive him in the snow, his sister Rory whispered a desperate plea that would go unanswered. Quote, "Michael, now is the time to fight. Don't leave us." David Kennedy. If Michael was the daredevil, his brother David was the sensitive soul who never truly recovered from the trauma of his father's assassination. David was just 12 when he watched his father, RFK, die on live television, a scar that reportedly drove him into a spiral of addiction. His death in a Palm Beach hotel room was lonely and quiet, a stark contrast to the public lives of his siblings. It was a tragedy of neglect and unresolved grief, playing out in the background of a family that was constantly pushing forward, perhaps too fast for some to keep up. The official report noted a heartbreaking irony. The family had gathered in Florida not for a funeral, but for an expected death that didn't happen, only to be blindsided by one that did. Quote, "They stated that the family's reason for being present in Palm Beach was for the express purpose of seeing their grandmother prior to her expected death." Kathleen "Kick" Kennedy. Long before the assassinations, there was Kick, the rebellious, effervescent sister who charmed British aristocracy and defied her devout mother Rose. Kathleen Kennedy had already lost her husband in World War II, but she refused to let grief dim her spirit, pursuing a new romance that scandalized her family. In 1948, defying the warnings of a storm, she boarded a plane to France with her lover, a decision that would end her life at just 28. Her death was the first major post-war blow to the siblings, silencing the laughter of the sister Jack Kennedy claimed was most like him. Joseph Kennedy Jr. The curse arguably began here, with the golden child who was supposed to be president. Joe Jr. was the star of the family, handsome, athletic, and groomed from birth by his father to lead the nation. But during a secret WW2 bombing mission, his plane exploded over the English Channel, vaporizing the family's original dream in a split second. His death didn't just break his parents' hearts, it shifted the devastating weight of expectation onto his sickly younger brother, John, changing the course of history forever. In a letter written shortly after the crash, a grieving JFK acknowledged the void his brother's perfection left behind. Quote, "His worldly success was so assured and inevitable that his death seems to have cut into the natural order of things." Rosemary Kennedy. While death has claimed many Kennedys, Rosemary's fate was perhaps even more tragic because she was left behind to live it. Born with intellectual disabilities, Rosemary was subjected to a botched lobotomy at age 23, orchestrated by her father in a misguided attempt to control her mood swings and protect the family's reputation. The procedure left her with the mental capacity of a toddler, unable to walk or speak clearly, and she was hidden away in an institution for decades. It's the family's darkest secret, a betrayal by a father that erased his daughter's existence to preserve political ambition. John F. Kennedy Jr. For a generation that didn't witness the 60s, this was the moment the Kennedy curse became real. JFK Jr. was America's prince, the little boy saluting his father's casket, who grew into a charismatic editor and style icon. When his plane went missing off the coast of Martha's Vineyard, carrying his wife Carolyn and sister-in-law Lauren, the entire world held its breath, hoping for a miracle that never came. The recovery of the wreckage days later extinguished the last flicker of Camelot, marking the end of the direct line to the White House and leaving a void that no other family member could fill. His uncle, Ted Kennedy, captured the unbearable sadness of a life cut short in a eulogy that reduced a nation to tears. Quote, "We dared to think that this John Kennedy would live to comb gray hair with his beloved Carolyn by his side, but like his father, he had every gift but length of years." Robert F. Kennedy. 5 years after his brother's murder, Bobby Kennedy had become the vessel for the country's healing and hope. He was moments away from potentially securing the Democratic nomination, having just won the California primary, when shots rang out in the kitchen of the Ambassador Hotel. The assassination of RFK didn't just kill a man, it killed the dream that the violence of the 60s could be overcome by compassion and moral leadership. It was a blow that broke the spirit of the family and arguably the nation, leading to a cynical era from which many feel we have never fully recovered. John F. Kennedy. The event that split the 20th century in half. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy in Dallas is the wound that refuses to heal, the moment when the modern American nightmare began. It wasn't just the brutality of the act, caught on film for all to see, but the destruction of the youthful optimism he represented. For the family, it was the loss of a father, husband, and brother. For the world, it was the abrupt end of an era of innocence. Every tragedy that followed is viewed through the lens of this singular, earth-shattering afternoon in Dealey Plaza. In the immediate aftermath, civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. issued a statement that perfectly encapsulated the global shock. Quote, "I am shocked and grief-stricken at the tragic assassination of President Kennedy. He was a great and dedicated president." Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think the sheer number of tragedies affecting this single family is just a statistical anomaly, or is there something to the idea of a Kennedy curse? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below.